Okay.
All right, I'm so excited today to be interviewing a mother whose child also had the diagnosis of autism, and she has made a complete turnaround in a short span of time. So I'm going to be asking you some questions. Would you like to introduce yourself with us today?
Yeah, sure. Hi. Thank you, Sierra. My name's Rosanna, and I'm excited to share my story about my daughter, my beautiful 3.5-year-old daughter, Sienna.
Thank you very much. So tell us today just a little bit about life before Sienna's autism diagnosis. Like, what symptoms did you start to see leading up to the diagnosis, and what brought you in to have her diagnosed initially?
So it was the 2-year wellness check. And I actually kind of knew around 2 years old, I kind of knew something was different. Um, Sienna was progressing really well. Like, she started walking right before her first birthday. It seemed like everything was on point. She had a great sense of humor, would laugh at things and laugh at us, would make silly faces. All the things seemed to really be on track. But then by the second, her second birthday, I remember going in for that like wellness check, and they start asking you a few questions. And I just remember being a little bit concerned because she wasn't pointing at, the airplane going by, and she wasn't making eye contact. She had started out pretty strong. I think she was at about 8 words, and then was idle there for about 3 months before she turned 2. And everyone said, "Oh, just wait, it's gonna explode, it's gonna explode." And it wasn't. And I knew also there were some other signs. Sienna oftentimes would spin a lot and kind of stim. Now I know that's stimming. I didn't know at the time. I just was like, what's going on? But she wasn't looking at me. I would say her name, she wouldn't look up. And again, just no progression in words. There wasn't any of the pretend play either that I know a lot of my friends with kids had, and just the milestones weren't there. And I mentioned it to her pediatrician, and I think at the time it was just a few months over 2, and he had suggested that I get in touch with a local clinic here in Washington State. And it's great because they work with kids up until 3 years old, and they specialize, in working with kids on the spectrum. And they have a play group, and they've got occupational therapy and speech therapy. And so we went through the interview for that, and we had an assessment done, and she qualified for services through that. And so we were getting speech therapy and occupational therapy for about 8 months. And it was, every now and then a new word might squeak out or something, and the concentration would get a little bit better, but the tantrums were out of control. They were so bad. And you question that, right? You wonder, is this a behavioral issue? Like, is this just normal toddler behavior? But as a mother, there's instincts that you have, and you have to listen to those. And I knew that something was not right. I just knew there was something more, that there was something more that I wasn't understanding that was going on with her.
Mm-hmm.
And actually at that time, even when she was getting these services, we still hadn't had an official assessment done for autism at that point. We still did not do that. We didn't do that until March of this year, 2023. We didn't have the official assessment done until then. And we did that through University of Washington. They have an autism assessment done with psychologists and whatnot. And so we had it done, and then she was officially diagnosed in March of this year.
Okay. So at the center where she was diagnosed in Washington, what did they tell you upon the diagnosis that day?
It was interesting because it was during COVID. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's it, thinking back on that day when we were there and she was actually getting tested, everybody's got a mask on, like how, and I think about like these poor kids, and like how are they even supposed to like know what's going on with all these people hiding their face? But so we went through the assessment and they were, trying to get her to engage and calling her name, and she wasn't responding. And I just remember getting that phone call with the actual report, if you will. And she said, your daughter, there are some things that your daughter excels at, and where she's above average, if you will. And then there are things that she needs a lot of support with. And
Mm-hmm.
she's definitely on the spectrum. And I'm like, what even mean? I had no idea, you
Mm-hmm.
know. It's it was really hard actually, because you know, it's it sounds like a prognosis, if you will. Sorry, like here's what you got.
Mm-hmm.
This is the diagnosis. Good luck. Take care. It was I remember getting off the phone and crying, and I was just overwhelmed with emotion because she was just saying that, that Sienna's gonna have an uphill battle, and
Mm-hmm.
but that we're great parents, and that, we're gonna be there to help get her speech and occupation and get her all these extra things. And then she had also mentioned ABA. I think it's called ABA, um, ABA therapy, and she was saying that it's highly controversial. And I'm like, well, why would we consider something highly controversial? And I just remember she's like, well, here's some links, definitely look into that if you're curious. And I mean, it was so overwhelming. I can't even explain how I felt. Like it was just a ton of bricks, and about our daughter and how she's on the spectrum. And again, I still really didn't even know what that was until I started doing my own homework.
Right, right. So at this point in time, you were sort of thinking, gosh, what's going to be her future? And what does
Mhm.
that really look like for her? And how much support are we really going to be able to provide for her lifelong? So fast forward just a little bit more time after you receive this diagnosis. And, what is life like? What are you pursuing in regards to their recommendations? Are you doing other therapies? I know you mentioned you started doing more homework. So tell us a little bit about what life was like after the diagnosis.
So, I would say that for the first few, gosh, I'd say for the first few months, we were kind of spinning. And I had talked to a couple of my friends, really good friends, and one of them in particular had said, gosh, I have a friend who has a child who is also on the spectrum. You should read this book. She highly recommends this book. And so she sent me a book, and I remember reading that book, and I remember there was a line in this book. I can't remember the name of the book right now, but I remember this line, and it was so profound to me. And it said that if your child is in pain or is sick and they're sitting on a tack,
Mhm.
and you treat them for whatever pain or sickness that they have because they're sitting on a tack, and then you take the tack at, or you don't take that, you treat them, and then the pain goes away, they're still sitting on a tack. That
Right.
was like the underlying, that was what was so profound to me. I just remember it stuck. And it said you can treat and give medicine and treat and give therapy and go to speech and go to occupation and do all these things, but your child is still sitting on a tack. How
Mhm.
do we take the tack out? The
Right.
tack needs to come out. And I just remember thinking, like, that's what it is. We can do all of these things, but it's not addressing the issue of where is this stemming from?
Right, right.
And so I think I started going down the rabbit holes of reading and online articles and talking to people and, just digging. Like I just wanted answers. I didn't feel like what we were doing because we had already, mind you, we'd already been doing almost 9 months of speech and occupation, private speech and occupation at our home
Mhm.
every week, every single week, and a play group 2 days a week with me there with Sienna. But we were doing all that for almost 9 months,
Mhm.
and not much had changed. And so
Right.
why would I think that continuing down that road with no other changes was going to make a difference? I
Mhm.
knew that something had to be different, and I knew that by when I first read that book that tack had to come out, and I had to figure that part out.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I just became really curious, and it's what led me to you.
Okay, yeah. Would you say there was a little bit of confusion as well on your behalf in regards to seeing how Sienna was progressing, meeting her developmental milestones until suddenly she wasn't? So, upon receiving the diagnosis, were you left slightly confused? Like, my daughter wasn't always autistic. How did she get on the spectrum? This isn't making any sense to me. Was that something that was a thought in your mind at that time?
Absolutely. I absolutely. And a lot of guilt. Like, did
Hmm.
I do something wrong?
Okay.
Was it that, was it something that I was taking when I was pregnant? Is it something because I was a pescatarian? Was it I wasn't eating enough iron? Was it like, I mean, I put a lot on myself. I blamed myself. I
Mhm.
went through every single, time she went to the doctor and every single, schedule that she had, whatever. I just went through every single thing. And I thought I would sit and I would watch videos of her when she was a baby. And I'm like, she's looking right at me as I'm
Right,
filming
right.
this. She's looking at me. She's laughing when I'm laughing. She's copying my
Mhm.
face, all the things. What happened?
Right, right. So you were at a point in time where you thought this doesn't even make logical sense. How
No, no.
happened with your daughter? Okay. So you start doing your homework and you said you found my story about my son Andy. Did you find me on TikTok, Instagram, sharing my videos about Andy?
I found you on Instagram, and I remember coming across videos of Andy, and I remember they were videos of him when he was baby
Mhm.
and more toddler actually. And I saw Sienna. I
Mhm.
saw behavior, um, the sounds, the kind of grunting, the want it's like they want so bad to in the frustration, like they want so bad to tell you something, but they're not able to. And I remember seeing these videos, and it was really an amazing thing because your videos, once I watched them, all of your stories started popping up, of course. And maybe that's, I believe that there's a different reason for that up above. But I also think like your videos just kept popping up and popping up. And I just remember I was like, there's something here. Like I'm really relating to this story.
Right, right.
Um,
You
so my
resonate.
husband and we started watching your videos, and I started going into your Instagram page and looking at past videos that you had posted,
Mhm.
and then seeing Andy having a conversation with you, telling
Right.
you what his favorite, characters were and what his favorite thing to eat was and his favorite ice cream. And I was like, she is healing him. This is amazing.
Mhm.
How? I want to know how. I want to know how. And then I saw that you were offering calls. And that's when I remember talking to my husband that night, and I said, we need to call her. We
Yeah.
have to call her. I need to know what she did, um, so that we can look into that for Sienna.
Right, right. Okay. So we had our call. I remember our day we had our call and we immediately got to work. We started working on many great things for Sienna. So our call was back in July. Correct me if I'm wrong. That was
Correct.
right. Started. And after we started, I know you and your husband got to work right away. You were
Mhm.
absolutely fantastic with implementing everything, didn't have any excuses. You just got right to work. When we started making these changes, I feel like we saw significant progress in Sienna very quickly. So, do you want to start telling me just what were some of the things that you started seeing improve? What were some of her struggles that we had talked about on the call in regards to things that you were really, really troubled by, concerned with for your daughter? And then how did those slowly start improving over time?
So I want to first, I first want to say that I'm going to go back to when we first had that consultation with you. We were so blown away by how professional, how prepared, how precise you were in that phone call.
Mhm.
I think that that's really important to mention because I didn't know you. I knew you from Instagram.
Right.
That's as far as it ever went.
Mhm.
And I remember my husband was at work and I was like, I need you to be on this call. And he had to take an hour out of work to be on this call. And he's like, what is this call? Who is this person? Um, and I remember we got on the call and I had filled out all that information in advance. And you were so prepared and so like you knew her. You
Mhm.
knew her from everything that I had given you. And you went right to, I mean, we got on that call and within 60 seconds, you were off and to the races. I mean, it was amazing.
Mhm.
So I want to thank you for that because I think that that set the foundation of trust and that set the foundation of commitment.
Mhm.
Honestly, like
Right.
you created confidence in us from the very beginning.
I'm so
And so we knew that you knew what you were talking about. And I think that that's important because it really did set the ground for that. And so after that phone call, we got a recap from you and a plan from you immediately. I mean, it was right after we hung up the phone. We got everything was emailed and I was like, this is unbelievable. It was amazing. It was so amazing and it was exciting.
Mhm.
And I remember opening it and I will admit I was a bit overwhelmed at first. I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's so many things." But I loved how you simplified it and you said, "All right, here are the phases. Let's start with phase 1. Like let's break this mountain down into small hill."
Right.
And we started with phase 1 and I just remember like I put we put our trust in you and we'd seen Andy and all the progress there and so we went for it.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to go all in because I know that that's equally as important in the healing process is you've
Mhm.
got to be all in. This is
Mhm.
not I'm going to try a little bit and if it doesn't work then walk away. Like you got to really commit and I believed that from you. And so we started with the phase 1 and we started with the diet changes. And it is it's mind-blowing and it's hard to explain to people that within 2 weeks
Mhm.
we saw a difference. We
Right.
saw a massive difference. It was to the point where my husband, who's pretty I don't want to say he's super skeptical about everything, but he's
Research.
definitely he's a tougher one to convince for sure. And even he would say, this is amazing. Like he was telling people, I was telling people, our daughter within 2 weeks, the tantrums had literally not stopped completely, but they had reduced by more than half. I would say like 75% less
Yes.
tantrums. And the
Yes.
tantrums before were so bad that I remember like the emotional dysregulation that Sienna was having. I would have to get up and leave places with her.
Mhm.
I would cry in the car. I would call my mom and my friends and just say, I don't know what to do. I
Right.
can't, I don't know what to do for her. I can't help her. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And they were so bad. But within 2 weeks of following your protocol. And, you know, it was literally like a light went off. And Sienna, behavioral changes, emotional regulation, she was looking at us. It was like she was like seeing us for the first time. And oh, it was so crazy. I remember taking her to shopping. I remember taking her to Costco or grocery store shopping, and I didn't have to give her my cell phone. And that was a big deal, because that's how I used to have to get through things, because she would just not know how to regulate, and she would get in these fits and get frustrated. And because she wasn't able to speak, and she wasn't really looking at me, or like I wasn't able to really calm her, I'd give her my phone. That was just what I would have to do, was either give her my phone to default or put on a cartoon.
Right.
And I remember taking her to Costco or grocery store, and I didn't give her my phone. And I
Yeah.
called my husband and I said, it was like Sienna had been there for the first time in her whole life. She looked around, was laughing, was smiling, was looking at me. I was
Mhm.
picking up things and putting them in the cart and telling her what they were, and she was totally engaged. And
Mhm.
I remember calling my husband and saying, I did not give Sienna my phone, not once today. And that's when I knew something profound was happening. I knew that this was not just a band-aid, like something was really changing in her. And
Right.
that was within 2 weeks. And I also remember this. So we had gotten Sienna, since then, we'd gotten her a private speech therapist, because she graduated out of that program that we had
Mhm.
before. And so we got her a speech therapist. And within that 2 week time period, I remember that speech therapist saying to me, I don't know what you're doing, but you need to keep doing it.
Mhm.
And it was because Sienna had started to say words. And
Yeah.
this was within 2 weeks. Like, it was unbelievable, like the amount of progress that we saw in such a short time.
Right, right. Oh my goodness, it's beautiful. I'm gonna get emotional all over again, um, sharing it. So those were the beginning improvements. I know some months have passed, but even such a short span of time, yet again, it's only been a few months since we started this in July. We are now in November, halfway through November. And where is Sienna now? What's her progress like then now, present day?
Again, it's unbelievable. Sienna is she is making so much progress every single day. There's a new word every single day. She's now making requests. She's
Mhm.
now saying, she's making requests, like such as saying things like, I can't reach, I need help,
Mhm.
um uh what else, come play with me,
Mhm.
um help me. There's different things that are coming up now that have just happened within the past few weeks.
Mhm.
um she is in preschool. She started preschool in September, and her teacher is blown away by her. Her teacher said to me that Sienna is making progress like she's never seen in a student on the spectrum. She said,
Mhm.
I don't know. Again, these are the same words the speech therapist said. I don't
Mhm.
know what you're doing, but it's amazing, whatever it is. Keep doing it.
Wow.
The eye contact is unbelievable. She's pointing at things in the book. We read books every single night, and we say our prayers every night and every time we eat a meal. And she puts her head down and closes her eyes. She says amen. She can point, like if I point to pictures of herself on my phone and I say, who's this? And she'll say, Cece.
Oh, I love it.
Um, she is really engaged with other kids. That was another thing, that in the very beginning, she was really in her own little world. And I was like, oh, well, she's just an independent player. Um,
Mhm.
but it's like now we have play dates all the time. I mean, I'm feeling the weeks are full with play dates. And we have her little friends will come over and she'll run over to the door, grab their hand and say, come play, come play.
I love
And
it so much.
it's it's I'm at a loss for words because there's been so much healing and so much development in the past. It's only been 4 months. It's been 4 months.
Right.
And our daughter is a completely different, like it's completely different now. um it's fun too. I took her to the zoo the other day and we held hands all the way from the parking lot to the to when we check in, we scan
Mhm.
and we held hands together. That never would have happened before.
Right.
That was also another very big concern of mine. It was in the top 3 concerns of mine, actually, was that she would run off. She would
Right.
I'll never forget. We were at a park one day and she was playing on one of those kind of round spinning things, and she was just kind of sitting on the side of it and going around really slow. And there were several kids at the park, and a little girl had fallen off a swing and she was crying, and I noticed her mom had a newborn baby, and so I ran over and I said, are you okay? And I picked up this little girl, and the mom runs over with the baby because she's by herself and taking care of this little girl. I'm like, your daughter just fell. And I look over and my daughter's gone. She's gone.
Right.
She wasn't there. I start panicking.
Mhm.
I running around the park. I can't find her anywhere. I'm calling her name. Nothing.
Mhm.
She had run around the other side of the park behind a building where there's basketball courts. And one of the basketball players picked her up and brought her back over.
Thank
It
God.
was the scariest day of my life. Literally. No joke. I thought it could have happened that fast. But
Mhm.
this was the reality before. She
Right.
didn't respond to her name. She didn't she fled all the time, gone all the time. She would do that. It didn't matter. I couldn't take her to the grocery store and just let her walk, or take her to the zoo and just let her walk. She would just take off, never
Mhm.
even turn around and look back.
Mhm.
That was the reality that I thought this is how it's going to be. And literally within those 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, I can take her to the park. I can take her to the zoo. I can go to shopping, whatever. And she stays with me. She holds my hand. She may run off just a tad ahead of me, but she turns and looks back for me
Mhm.
every second. She's
Mhm.
turning and looking back, making sure I'm there. That was not something that she used to do. And so that's just one of the dozens and dozens of things that she's done, that she does now, that she's developed, that she didn't used to do before.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's such a miracle.
Mhm.
It's truly amazing because every single day is such a gift. And
Right.
every single day, recognizing these changes in her
Mhm.
is the most beautiful thing, because I feel like she's the happiest that she can be. And
Mhm.
nothing makes me happier than to see her full of so much joy. I mean, I can count on my hand within the past month how many tantrums she's had.
Mhm.
And I know she's a toddler, and I know toddlers are going to get fussy and they're going to want, the pink lollipop at the
Mhm.
grocery store or
Mhm.
whatever. And
They're
that's
so self.
normal.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
get that, but I think I understand those differences now more than I ever did before. Um,
Yes.
and if you say no, and she'll get upset, but within 30 seconds she's over it and she moves on and she knows how to regulate.
Right. Exactly. You're able to reason with her. So, what does the future feel like now? Before, when you had the diagnosis, I'm sure the thoughts in your mind of what her future would be were pretty hopeless, and now would you confidently say that you and your husband have so much more hope for Sienna's future? Do you feel that Sienna will be able to go to high school and junior high and graduate and get a job and be able to do all the amazing things that we hope for our children.
Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind. Um, if you were to have asked me that before we started this journey,
Right.
I don't think I could have said that. I think that you know, I knew that we would always give her everything that we could give her and that we would do everything possible, but I didn't know this was possible.
Mm-hmm.
And now seeing her and how far she's come in such a short amount of time, both my husband and I we just are so full of hope. And we just know, we know she's gonna get through this, and we're gonna heal her. And
Right.
we're going to do everything that we can to keep her on this path, because it's working, and she's so much happier. She's so full of joy, and it's really an amazing thing to see. And I feel like at the rate that we're going right now, I absolutely feel like Sienna, is going to end up at the school that we want her to be at. We want her, there's a school, like a dream school that I have that I want her to be at. And I just, yeah, there's no doubt anymore. It's really, it's it's so exciting.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's exciting, it's amazing, it's a beautiful thing, and I'm so grateful to you.
Thank
I
you.
can't thank you enough. There are no words to thank you enough, because you have done so much work and have gone through this journey. And I think that's another thing, you can read books and you can talk to people, but until they've actually lived it and until they've gone through it themselves, I don't think that people really understand how it feels, or that feeling of hopelessness, or that feeling of just feeling lost. And until we met you, that's exactly how we felt. We just almost felt like it's almost like we had just accepted it, like this is the way it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
um and then when we met you, it's like you gave us so much hope. And now with the results that we're seeing, it's like, gosh, it's given us so much energy, I guess, to just
Mm-hmm.
keep giving
Yeah.
it all we've got.
Yes, the encouragement to see the the fruit of your labors coming
Yeah.
forth,
Yeah.
seeing how your daughter has significantly transformed. My hopes and my prayers for your family, which I am certain is going to happen, is that autism diagnosis will be a thing of the past. And one day you will be having that conversation where we will say, remember when Sienna was once diagnosed with autism?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with so many other parents. My hopes are that this will encourage them, enlighten them, and help them to understand that there is so much more hope for their child than they are believing. I want to end with just asking you, you having been through this yourself, if you could give one piece of advice to a parent out there right now who's skeptical, who's hesitant to believe that there's any hope outside of therapy for an autism diagnosis, what would you encourage them to understand or to hear from you today?
Um, Gosh, I did not realize, I think, going into this and from that very first um diagnosis, I thought that this was something she was born with. I thought that this was something that we would just have to accept and medicate for, or, you know, I guess just live with. I didn't know there was another way. And so I would encourage anyone out there, any moms that are going through this,
Mhm.
to listen to your story, to watch those videos of you with Andy, to see if there are things that you're seeing that you can relate to, because that's that to me was what brought me to you, was seeing those videos and being able to relate to that,
Right.
being open to it, being curious. I think being curious is really important, and not settling for whatever the pediatrician or whatever, whatever the psychologist is telling you. Don't settle for that. There is a way. There is a way, and we're proof of that. We're proof of that there is a way. And I also didn't realize that such a significant amount of a child's behavior and what happens is directly linked to their gut. I had no idea. What is it? 70% of your behavioral comes from your gut. And that's all of us. That's not just our kids, but that's us too. And I didn't know any of that. I didn't know any of that. So I would encourage you to be curious. I would encourage you to um read about certain studies that have been done. I would encourage you to listen to Sierra's stories, watch the videos of her and her son Andy. And I would encourage you to make that phone call with her. Make that phone call is the best thing we ever did. And all of the things that we did, we had the speech, we had the OT, we had the assessment, we did this, we did that. I thought that, lavender lotion was going to help her sleep better. I thought that, let's tie a backpack with a string on it and help her stay with me when we go somewhere. I mean, just all the things, everything everybody tells you. And then the pediatrician's like, she's fine, she'll grow out of it. All of that. None of that made a difference like the phone call that we had with you. That moment, that hour was the best thing that we ever did, was having that phone call with you. Because yes, it's our journey, and yes, we have to put the work in, and yes, it's our commitment to our daughter to heal her, and it's a continuous thing. But you gave us that map. You said, here's the map. I did the research. This is what worked. This is what didn't work, and here's why. And another thing that you did that was so great was, I remember, like, you're busy. Moms are busy. They're crazy. It's busy. You've got stuff to do. I'm fortunate that I get to stay home with my daughter, but I know that there are a lot of parents that do not get to do that. And so how can you do things that are fast? I can't make homemade everything all the time. But you knew that. You knew that. And in the consult recap, you were able to say, you know what, if you're going to go buy something, buy these brands. Don't buy these brands. And here's why. You did all of that research for us. So why reinvent the wheel, I guess, right? Like, it's that you've done the work. You're sharing this amazing and incredible knowledge that you have. I would highly suggest, moms, dads, you guys, please take that step, make that phone call with Sierra, get it scheduled. It's the best thing you'll ever do. And then take that information and run with it. And that's the best advice I could give. And now I'm continuing on that and taking everything that you've given me, and I'm now just taking it a step further, and I'm challenging myself, not only for my daughter, but for my family, myself, my health, my husband's health, how we're making meals for everybody, the things that we're eating, the way that we're taking care of ourselves, all of it. It's a benefit for everyone, not just our daughter. So it's such an incredible blessing. You are such an incredible blessing. And I can't thank you enough for what you've done for our family. Truly.
Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing your story, like I said, and being willing to be open and vulnerable and share your whole entire journey with Sienna. I just want to once again commend you on all the hard work that I know that you and your husband have put forth on this journey. It's not an easy mountain to climb. And as you mentioned just a couple seconds ago, really it's a healing journey for the entire family. Autism really is a wake-up call. You have put forth the work, and you have seen a lot of not only physical changes, spiritual changes, And you really have grown stronger and closer together as a family and in the kingdom of God. And I'm just so, so proud of you. I'm so proud of your family with where you're at. And I, again, really thank you for coming forward and sharing your healing journey with Sienna. I do.
Thank you so much. Thank you. God bless you, Sierra. Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Of course. Thank you.